Hello, this is Jim McKeeth, and welcome to this CodeRage 10 session on integrating new Windows 10 and WinRT platform features into your app. In case you missed the announcement, Microsoft unveiled Windows 10, the latest version of their operating system. It's a free upgrade for Windows Vista users and newer, and it's already running on 110 million desktops, laptops, and tablets. Windows 10 combines the best of Windows 7 and 8.1, so it gives you a great desktop first interface with great mouse interfaces, etc. And then when you move to a touch interface, it works great there as well. It's also making native Win32 and Win64 applications first-class citizens again, which we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So first, some of the new 10 Seattle features for Windows 10. On the RTL, we have WinRT API interfaces for a number of WinRT classes. We also have got the T Notification Center component, which is now available across all platforms. Contract sources, allowing your application to share data with other applications. Notably under FireMonkey, we have new Multiview Behavior and new T-Switch Behavior, as well as the ability to render with native controls. On VCL, we've got high DPI and 4K monitor support and a bunch of new controls: the activity indicator, search box, relative panel, switch view, split view. Both FireMonkey and VCL also have new Windows 10 styles. Now, the highlighted items you see here in the brackets are not specific to Windows 10. You can actually take advantage of these features across all Windows platforms. So, in the FireMonkey features across all the platforms we support. So that's great that you can leverage these on older OSs or other OSs as well. So what exactly is the Windows Runtime, or WinRT? First, a little history lesson. Now, I've done the best I could to make this accurate, but it's by no means complete. If you're concerned about things I may be missing or have dates not exactly right, you're welcome to present at CodeRage next year. Back in '93, Microsoft introduced Win32 as the API interface for Windows NT 3.1. When the VCL and RTL were introduced, they quickly took advantage of Win32 and had great interaction. So when you're developing with VCL and RTL, you could take advantage of all the Win32 features if you wanted to. In 2002, while WinXP was the primary operating system, Microsoft introduced .NET. .NET was their new Windows API. It was going to replace Win32 and be the dominant API on the platform. And Microsoft forecast that Windows Vista was going to be the beginning of the end for Win32, that .NET was going to be the API going forward and the only way to develop for Windows Vista. It's about this time that we saw the release of VCL for .NET, because the VCL for .NET was built on .NET so that users could take advantage of that .NET interaction and have first-class applications on Windows Vista going forward. Now, this is what Microsoft's forecast was, the end of life of Win32. The reality was Win32 continued on strong. In fact, .NET was found to not be a great solution on the desktop, but was instead really embraced on web development server side. So 2012, shortly after we saw the introduction of FireMonkey and the ability to take Delphi and C++ Builder applications across platform, we see the introduction of Windows 8. Now, Windows 8 brought with it another new Windows API, the WinRT. Microsoft announced WinRT was going to be the primary interface for developing for Windows 8 going forward. And everybody said, we've heard this before, and took it with a grain of salt. But the reality was WinRT had limited interaction outside of .NET. Microsoft had some flavors of Visual Studio that could talk to it through Visual C++. Special version of C++ could work with WinRT, but the majority of apps that took advantage of WinRT, that were the Metro type interface that was popular with Windows 8 and then had its name changed, were developed with C# VB all around .NET. Now we come to 2015 with Windows 10. Windows 10, we see a big shift with WinRT in that WinRT has been opened up, and you have this high level of interaction between Win32, .NET, and by extension, the VCL and the RTL. So Windows 10 has made Win32 applications, native applications, VCL applications, and RTL applications, and FireMonkey applications first-class citizens on Windows 10 because they have full access to WinRT. So what exactly is Windows RT or the Windows Runtime? This is the new default application programming interface. It doesn't replace Win32. It runs at the same level as Win32. Some features are available through WinRT. Other features you're going to access through Win32. That's fine. They coexist side by side. It's important to note this isn't to be confused with Windows RT, which was the ARM version of Windows that ran on ARM tablets, which has been end-of-life by Microsoft. This is WinRT, or the Windows Runtime. So the Windows Runtime is an object-oriented API, which is much different than Win32. It's also asynchronous. No calls to it will take longer than 50 milliseconds. If they do, then if the call could potentially take that long, then it is called asynchronously. It's COM-based, but it's a little different than we're used to with COM. And it's also important to note that it's not .NET, it's not managed code, it's a native code API. So in the RTL, our Windows runtime interfaces include 40 new units, or over 40 new units in the Wynn API namespace. This includes helpers to ease the creation of objects, so you don't get bogged down with a lot of different factories and set up and tear down. In fact, you end up writing less code with Delphi or C++ Builder than you would with C#, Visual Basic, or Microsoft Visual C++. And we're used to that with Delphi. That's why we love Delphi, is because we get a lot more done. Here is the listing of the new units in the Wynn API namespace. They're all found in source RTL WinRT folder. Actually, the system.win.winrt is a helper class. It's not found in that folder. It's a different folder, but the rest of these are found in that folder. I do want to point out the WinAPI.devices.bluetooth. This exposes all the new Bluetooth functionality in Windows 10 so that we can take advantage of beacons and Bluetooth LE in a much more elegant manner. So this is something great to have access to and to see what it unlocks for us in the future. So in Windows 10, we can take advantage of creating notifications from our applications. This is done through the T-Notification Center. So now the T-Notification Center exists and works across all 4 platforms: Windows 10, OS 10, Android, and iOS. So you can schedule notifications or post them immediately. They can, if they're scheduled, they can occur after your application is shut down, and these can tap the notification and relaunch the application. The notifications appear in the Windows 10 Action Center, and they've moved from the FireMonkey namespace into the system.notifications namespace. And so now they work with VCL, RTL, FireMonkey, all application types. One note is that if you want the notification to be able to relaunch the application, then your application needs to have a shortcut on the desktop or the start menu. Here's the notifications example, the VCL application that we ship with Rad Studio 10. So we can schedule notification here with the show button or show another button. We see the notification appears. When the user clicks on it or goes into the Action Center and clicks on it, you see that we receive a notification that our notification was clicked on. It works just like notifications did in other platforms. We can show a notification and then cancel it to get rid of it immediately. We can cancel all notifications. Canceling is done by the notification name, or cancels all notifications. So another new feature that WinRT brought was the idea of share contracts. Share contracts allow applications to share data with each other, much like you did with the share sheet on mobile applications. In Windows 10, because WinRT is available to desktop applications, you can now do share as a source from Delphi and Win C++ Builder applications. This allows you to share text, images, links, etc. You share the data with meta information that specifies titles, body, attachments, etc. There's two ways to share things. You can share it through the T sharing contract VCL component or the T share contract RTL class. So the RTL class can be used from FireMonkey or any non-VCL applications. So here's the sharing contract in action. When your application shares, the charm bar appears, and the user is able to select what application of available applications they want to share the data into. Here's a share contract example in Object Pascal. It's just a matter of setting all the properties and sharing the data through the call to init sharing down at the bottom. So this is the share contract component sample that we ship. This application here, we just have editors up that we can define all the data we want to share. And then when the share button's clicked, we patch all that data into the properties of the component and then call init sharing. So here we see the action bar pop up here, which we see the edit data title, which comes from here, edit data title, edit description comes from there. And these are the apps that are installed in Windows 10 that think they can share our data. So we can select mail, and we'll notice it tells us which application was chosen here. We get a callback, or I can jump over here and select OneNote, which will again have the data in here. And this is going to try and render the image, but is giving a little bit X right now, but that's okay. You get the idea of how this works, that it's able to connect to the other applications. So you see this actually happens after the fact, that it gets the notification back which application was chosen, and then we also stream the image to it directly here. We also have low-level WinRT calls. So this is by calling directly into those 40 new namespaces, 40 new units. So the classes are referenced by interfaces, which allows for automatic reference counting. There's helpers like twindowsString, which is in the system.winrt unit that makes it easy to work with the new hstring class that Microsoft introduced. Many classes have parameterless constructors, but if they also have other constructors, they're available through the .factory static member. So just type the class name .factory and you can get access to the other constructors. There's also a .statics member that gives you access to other static members of the class. So if you want to get access to static members or constants or something like that, they're all available through .statics. This is a ridiculously simple sample, but it shows how to take advantage of the WinRT low-level calls. So when I tap this button here, it's going to get a T calendar, which is part of the Wynn API globalization unit that is used to get date time information in different locales. So you can actually, there's another sample that we have that shows how to take advantage of the internationalization formats through this. But for right now, all we're going to do is going to get the nanoseconds as a string. Now, this nanoseconds as string returns as H string, which we can then call toString, which will turn it into a Pascal string. So we see right now we're getting our nanoseconds and setting it to the caption of the button. Really simple, really easy to do, but this shows how you can construct a class from the WinRT, store it as an interface, and make a call, and then cast it back to a Object Pascal string. I'll show you here that we also have this has the factory on it that you can use to call some of the other constructors. So if you want to use a constructor besides create, like for example, to pass in a locale, you can do that. This one doesn't have any static members, so it doesn't have the statics member. But if it did, then you would be able to access that the same way you access the factory one. So let's take a look at some of the new visual components we have. We have the new Multiview Behavior of navigation panel. This allows the panel to collapse into this narrow band instead of collapsing completely so that it's still visible. I really like this because the user can interact with it and see what's available to them there without having to expand it out completely. It's the default for Windows 10, but it's actually available across all platforms. Also, we've brought the native rendering from iOS to Windows. So on FireMonkey controls, you can specify the control type of platform, and this will do native rendering by the OS, as opposed to doing the GPU rendering by FireMonkey. And we have the FireMonkey Windows 10 styles. This includes the dark style, the blue style, and the light style. The new activity indicator is similar to the ANA indicator on FireMonkey, and it gives you the ability to display to users that something's happening, but you don't know how long it's going to take. Very configurable for flexible display of activity. So here's the activity indicator sample that we provide. You have different indicator types. I really like those momentum dots, but you can do the rotating sector or the sector ring. So you've probably seen all three of these in use on Windows 10. That's probably my favorite. There's different sizes as well. There's small, extra large is more visible in this demo here. And you could do white or black. So the white shows up really well if you're theming, for example, with the dark Windows 10 dark theme. You can change the delay as well, so you can go with really slow or really, really fast. The new relative panel is really cool. It allows you to specify that a control is relative to another control. And so instead of setting the control's positions absolutely, you instead say this button's always to the right of this edit box. This label's always to the left of the edit box, etc. So this is the new T relative panel sample that we have. So the cool thing about the relative panel is besides, you can specify the location absolutely like you could before with left and top, or you can specify the location relatively. So you can say I want the edit aligned to the left of the panel, or you can say I want the edit to align with the left of the button. And so now if the button moves, which right now it's set up to be draggable, the edit box stays aligned to the left of the button. And I can say I always want it to be above there, like this. So this is configurable. This behavior is changeable. So see now the button's aligned to the edit and the edit's aligned to the button. Which is kind of interesting. So usually what you're going to do with this is you're going to set it up so that you can say you want your button always to aligned to the right of or to the left of the edit box. Right, so let's see, we're going to take this one, remove that alignment on there, and we want the button aligned with the top of the edit box there. There we go. So we want the button aligned to the middle of that. And so now if the edit ever gets moved, that button's always going to be pinned right to the side of it. So this is great if you want to have your UI be flowing or reconfiguring, and you want to be able to know that this button is always going to be assigned to the right of the edit box. So previously I did tricks where I put like this on a panel, and then in the panel I put the button aligned to the left and the edit box aligned to the client or something like that, and then did use panels, nested panels. So now you don't have to do that. You can just give these relative alignments to your components and know that they'll always be where you expect them to be. So let's go into a little more detail of working with the relative panel. So I have a relative panel down here and have some various components on the relative panel. And if you select one of these components and scroll down to the bottom of the object inspector, you'll see it has an additional set of properties here that are injected by the fact that it's on the relative panel, which is really kind of cool. So if I want to make this label always to the right of the edit control, and come down here and say align vertical center with, like I said, the label, align vertical center with edit 1. And so now if I move the edit, it's always going to be in the there, but it's not necessarily just to the right of it. So I can come down here and say label 1, right of edit 1. Oops, left of edit 1, because I know my left from my right. Okay, so now as I move edit 1, that label's always going to be just to the left of it. So now at design time, it's easy to work with through these properties here. At runtime, the relative panel has a collection called the control collection that you can iterate through. So you can go control collection dot index of button 1 and find out what button 1's index is in the control collection, and you say control collection square bracket button 1, or whatever the index of button 1 was, in order to access these properties for button 1. So at runtime, button 1 does not have these properties in your code. You can't say button 1 dot align with top of panel. But if you say relative panel dot control collection index of button 1 dot align with top of panel, then you can access that. Now, if you're a C++ developer, then it would be arrow or dash greater than align with top of panel. So there you go. Pretty easy to work with. There is some documentation in the doc wiki that talks about precedence of alignment rules, so it's real important to understand this because you could give conflicting alignment rules, and it tells you how to resolve those and what the order of operations is. So it's very, very good to, very worthwhile to review this when working with the relative panel. The new T-search box includes both an audio and text indicator. When the user enters what they're searching for, the on-invoke search event occurs, and at that point you can filter or search other controls for the user. This is the T-search box sample that we ship. It has two different indicator modes, audio and text. In text mode, you can type text in here, and then either hit enter or tap the search button. And this causes the on-invoke search event to fire. And we see here all we're doing is displaying that it was a text search and they searched for hello world. In the audio mode, you can't type in here anymore, but you click the button and you just get an event that says audio search on an audio invoke search started. The supports BiDi, left to right, right to left, and also I'll just real quickly show you some of the Windows styles we have. Here's the blue style, here's the dark style, here's the Windows 10 style. New control is the Tsplit View. This is a VCL implementation that is similar to the Multiview. I love the Multiview. I'm excited about the new Tsplit View because it brings this great new UI paradigm to VCL applications as well. This is the split view sample. So it has a few different modes of operation here. Right now with this button set up to close or open the split view. And so if you see here, the split view is selected, and you see the little blue dots here. The split view is this area here, which in this case contains these menu items, but the split view can contain anything, and then you can change its behavior. So right now it's set to collapse completely, but when it's closed, we can make it so it goes to compact style. So now it just displays the icons, which I think this is a really slick format here because I can still click these icons and get the events from it. You can go to an overlay mode instead. So let's go like this and now overlays over the top of it. We can do the compact mode and overlay where the collapsed mode is small and it overlays over the top. Place it on the left or the right, and you can control the animations. Very cool, very nice new UI paradigm to incorporate into your VCL applications. There's the new VCL T toggle switch. This is similar to the FireMonkey T switch. It has custom captions, custom colors, and resizable elements. It has a state of TSS on or TSS off. And of course, the Windows 10 VCL style. This gives you the choice between dark, blue, and light styles to give you that modern UI look and feel on Windows 10. Now let's talk about the Windows Universal Platform, or UWP, and the effects of the Project Centennial Bridge. The Universal Windows Platform is kind of an umbrella name that includes a lot of things, but specifically it includes the ability to distribute your apps through the Windows Store. That's probably the biggest thing, is that you can have your app be installed and uninstalled and updated in a clean manner. It's all sandboxed safely, so the user doesn't have to worry about your application leaving behind DLLs and text files and configuration files all across the system. With being a Universal Windows Platform application, an application gets full access to the Windows RT and all platform features. And it has a universal app ID that uniquely identifies that app. So that's where Project Centennial comes in. This is a bridge that's coming out from Microsoft. They've announced it and already started talking about it. That's going to allow Win32 and Win64 based applications, native applications, to run as Windows to run as universal Windows platform apps. This gives all the advantages of the UWP and Windows 10 WinRT to desktop native apps. This does this by bundling up your app and all its support files into an app X. And then your app thinks those support files have been deployed to the system directory or wherever it is it expects them to be, because the I/O is mapped to the location in the bundle. But your application runs without virtualization. It's only when it's making the I/O calls to these bundled files that those calls are remapped. The rest of the time it's running natively. So there's no virtualization, there's no overhead that's going to slow your app down. It's running purely native with its maximum performance. The only limitation that they're expecting, well, there's a few other slight limitations, but the big limitation you might hit is that your app cannot escalate to admin privileges. So if your app needs to write to the program files directory or write to the Windows system folder, it's not going to be eligible to be used under the Centennial as a UWP app. To learn more about Project Centennial, you can check out this session from Build 2015. It's very informative, telling you about how they're expecting Centennial to work. It has a huge disclaimer that this is beta, not even released yet, so it could change. You can also sign up for updates at the URL there. Wait, what about Windows Phone? Part of being a UWP app is that you can get access to Windows Phone. Well, that's where Project Astoria Bridge comes in. Astoria Bridge is a bridge between Android apps and Windows Phone apps. Windows Phone 10 is going to include an Android subsystem that's going to map Android API calls to Windows API calls. So it's not virtualizing it, it's not running Android OS, it's just mapping those calls through the subsystem. This means that most APKs will run without modification on Windows 10. It also unlocks Windows Phone 10 specific features if you want to update your app to take advantage of those. If your app is using Google API specific calls like Google Maps or Google Cloud Messaging, then your app will need to be updated to instead call the Microsoft equivalent so that it can take advantage of those Windows 10 equivalent features. To learn more about Astoria, check out the intro session from Build 2015 available there. And you can also sign up for Project Astoria. It's actually in beta right now. And if you caught the product address, Marco Cantu showed an example of a FireMonkey application running on Windows Phone 10, thanks to Project Astoria. So in summary, Windows 10 is making Win32 and Win64 applications first-class citizens again. It's got a huge installation, it's moving fast, and it's a great opportunity to be a Delphi or C++ developer. VCL remains the best Windows client library. It has been since the beginning. You're more productive, you get more done, and you build great, fast apps. Thanks to all the new Windows 10 enhancements, your apps are going to be able to take advantage of all those great new features in Windows 10. FireMonkey Desktop is also significantly enhanced, also to be a great consideration for Windows 10 development, especially when you're looking to go cross-platform. Rad Studio is committed to keeping focus on Windows 10 and the Windows RT.
Okay, there was a request here to put one of these links back up again, so I'll just back up. There's the link for the Centennial Bridge, and actually go ahead and type this in here for you. All right, so there's a few questions here. Pat's asking, for sharing, can I shut down my app and still have the item available shared, i.e. is the shared data buffered by Windows? It's actually not. It's when the app is selected to be the shared target, you get a callback telling you where the app was, and in the example, you see that shows up there. It says OneNote was selected or Mail was selected. And then when the app goes to instantiate in this case an image, it contacts the app, and the app streams the image to your app streams the image to the target app. So it happens late. And actually, the Windows Clipboard was modified to work in a similar way to this. That if you copy something from your clipboard and then go to paste it into another application, it actually calls back to the source application to negotiate how to paste the data. But then if you close your application, at that point, it can cache it into the clipboard to save it so that it can exist outside your application once your application is closed. But in this case, at At least I didn't see anything about being able to cache it to save the data when you're sharing it. So it only shares it as long as the application is open, is my understanding. But now that I think about it, there might be a way to do it via caching as well. The notifications, on the other hand, are cached by the OS. So once you send a notification, your application can be closed, and that can still be handled by the OS. Question here, Ian's asking, if I make use of the Wynn API while developing on Windows 10, will my app work on early versions, Windows 7, Windows 8? So if you use the visual components, like the new form, the new relative panel, or stuff like that, those work across multiple versions. But the Windows RT specific things, like calling into the WinRT namespace or calling into the notifications or things like that, only work on Windows 10. So if you're using those features, I believe if you just disable them, then you'll still be able to run on Windows 7 and Windows 8. Is T-Relative Panel coming to FireMonkey? I could really use it there. Actually, Marco Cantu just walked in. So Marco, can we get the T-Relative Panel on FireMonkey?
I think there is, actually, we did the opposite. So we took some of the ideas from the Multiview component. And
that's the split view that's like Multiview.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, that's the split view. Yeah, no, we can certainly consider bringing some of the ideas over and branding. We don't want to end up with like too many options for doing the same thing. So this was specifically done for a focus on matching the new Windows UI. But there are certainly a couple of components we can move to FireMonkey, like for example with the entire idea of the animation, the floating animation thing was exactly a FireMonkey thing that we brought over. But it does make sense on Windows 10, so it was a good match.
Yeah, John says he'll elaborate on that later and tell you why he wants that.
Sure. No. It's very open to those kind of ideas. I mean, it's we're trying to keep the two platforms. In sync as much as we can going forward. So if we add a visual component on one side that makes sense, we can bring it to the other side easily.
Yeah. So the question here was, do the new WinRT libraries only available in Seattle? And that's correct. They're only available in Seattle.
Yeah, we released like a preview beta thing for Xe8.
That's
that
right.
was a download. I'm not 100% sure where that's available, but it was. It was through. But it was. But that code was really like a first attempt, so it's not as clean and as worked out. Even the APIs, the interfaces, the internal types that we're using were not really cleaned up. So, and the code is not compatible. So if you write on one, you can really move the code over to the other side. So I won't recommend using it. But if you really want to, that's one option to have a look to the things in Xe8.
Yeah. Ian's saying that he's already used the new split view and could make use of it being able to align to the top and bottom as well. Okay, so put the it's on the left and right, but if you can make it go from the top and the bottom, that'd be interesting.
Okay, yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Wonder if it would be extensible to be able to do that. Yeah, I really like the new split view and the new nav panel option in the multi-view. Those are really cool. I like that UI paradigm. With Project Centennial, where are we supposed to write INI files? So my understanding, and it's not out yet, but from what I understand is that if you'd want to write your INI, your best practice would be, so the idea behind Project Centennial is it's a bridge to get you started on Windows, and that you can then start adapting best practices for Windows 10. And so in that case, you'd want to write to your app data folder, not to your program files directory. So you can't get escalated to admin under Centennial. So if you want to do something that requires you to escalate to admin, like writing INI files in your program file directory, then you're not eligible to run under Centennial.
Yeah, that's true. And the recommendation would be that, although technically I think they provide a file system abstraction layer, so your application might think it's writing in one. It is similar to the virtual folders under user account control. So your application writes in one location. It's not allowed to. That file system is redirected somewhere else on the disk, making things safe. And every application will have its own view of the file system that is like practical is not the real file system. Project Centennial doesn't provide virtualization in terms of API calls. So if you can crash another application or another Windows, it is not a full separation. But in terms of file system and registries, like every application has its own view of the file system and registry that doesn't conflict with others. So they do virtualize file system and registry access. That's what we've been told. Of course, we'll have to try it out in practice when they release it, but that's the idea.
And there's a tpath call that will give you the path to the app data folder, correct?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I'm actually really excited about Project Centennial because from my understanding of it, I think that Delphi applications are really going to have a advantage with that compared to a lot of the other ones because we have a much lighter weight install as compared to a lot of the other ones that are be going through Project Centennial.
Yeah. In fact, it was right into there. I had some, some of the public information about Centennial. I went into a few other meetings. They really, really spend a huge amount of time explaining how you can package in a single Apex, which is a zip file with all of the files within it, all of the DLLs, all of the COM objects, libraries, all of the .NET runtimes, all of the bits and pieces that your executable relies upon. And in the Delphi world, we just have an exe and maybe a couple of ancillary files. So it's actually an extremely simple scenario compared, because the concept is, and the model they have is you run the installer, and the installer will capture all of the files that are moved like to Win32, the system Windows folder, the application folder, common files, whatever, and they'll rebuild the virtual directory with all of these files. But in our case, it's rare to have Delphi applications that start throwing files around in the file system, specifically in the system folder. So it becomes extremely easier, up to the point that the model of running the installer and understanding from the installer where the files go, we could probably skip in the future and just create, okay, this is the Apex file, which is a zip, with these are the 3 files within it. And our plan is to make it to support is the same way we support creating application for Android and iOS, where you have a deployment, you list the files you want to, even images and other ancillary files, and you get the result. So it should be doable. No promise because we don't have the bits to test against, but it should be doable. And they mention it, that it's not this model running the installer and capturing is not a requirement. It's just the easy way to do it. But again, for a Delphi application, it should be quite straightforward to create a Centennial Apex. And the big advantage with Centennial is, in terms of business side and marketing, is the ability to have application on the store.
Yeah, exactly.
To sell through Microsoft, and the same way you sell a mobile application.
Yep.
And that running updates, the entire set of things. It's also nice from a more technical perspective because Centennial provides a strong application ID. So there are some WinRT APIs that you can technically call today with 10 Seattle, but you don't have one of the parameters, which is your application ID, because that's not available. So you can call them in practice. Technically, yeah, but right. You're missing the key parameter. So once that is fixed, when you'll be able to have an application ID, then the entire WinRT API should be available.
Yeah.
That's our understanding.
Yep. There's a question here, not really related, but if you can set the font size as a decimal in Seattle.
On the VCL, no, I don't think we have.
Yeah, I don't think you can on the VCL, but can you do it on the FireMonkey?
I don't know. That's a good question, but I don't know.
I know in FireMonkey everything is a single instead of a
integer. Most of the items are single. I'm not sure about the font size, but on the VCL, no, it's an
integer. Okay. So here's a question. Is Microsoft working to eventually close off sales from outsiders of their own store?
I have absolutely no information, but I really doubt that's something that would make sense for the Windows platform. Even Apple on the Mac is pushing the store, but still fully allows, traditional application installation. Microsoft is smart enough not to cut themselves out of the business in a way like that. If that becomes a compulsory thing, people will stay on Windows 7 or something. So I don't see that coming. Now, the thing that's interesting is that there is a side advantage of the Windows Store, which Microsoft is building also a mechanism for enterprise for internal distribution. So like a company store kind of model where you can browse and install through the company, also do some license management. And that should also become a target for Centennial. So it would be great because it allows distribution for consumer apps if you want to sell on the wild, but also if a company uses that model for distributing to Windows 10 desktops, then you'll be able to participate with Delphi application again. I mean, it's probably something that will become important like in a year or so, but it's a nice other area that's good to be able to support.
Yeah, very cool. It seems unlikely that they would do that as well because on Windows 8, they originally came out, Windows 8 Store only contained the modern UI apps. And then they later said, well, we'll give you links to other apps. We can't actually distribute them. So they still acknowledge the fact that you're going to get apps from other sources, but they wanted to bring them all into the Windows Store. And so it seems like, and then Windows 10's opening it up even more with the bridges. So I think they're really going to, they acknowledge that that's a big part of Windows.
Yeah. They are certainly going to push the message that if you want security, if you want stability, if you want easier views of the environment, going through the stores is an advantage, but not to the point of making it a compulsory feature.
Like, for example, with Windows 8 and Windows 10, you have the recovery option of blowing everything away except your apps you got through the App Store and personal data. So that alone makes it really compelling to only use apps from the store. But that clearly that's not always going to be an option.
And the other thing, honestly, I mean, the Windows Store experience has been pretty bad. I mean, there's been a lot of discussions online about the fact that like 80% of the applications there were just completely fake or completely, not really Trojan or viruses, but like application you'd pay to download something free. I mean, things like that, which really should. I mean, Microsoft kept pushing, we have a curated store. It was like a disaster from that point of view. They are going to push much more effort, so provide higher quality, provide better response to users. So that will become a great opportunity. Again, if the store succeeds and Windows 10 succeeds, being able to participate, on Windows 10 development today and on the Windows Store deployment with Delphi tomorrow, that would certainly be very interesting for Windows developers.
Yeah, yep. I agree. Okay, well, I think we're at the end of the questions. So thanks, everyone, for joining us for day 2 of CodeRage.